Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you to the sixth edition of our Tech Meetup. I'm Shohail, and I'm part of Eastern Enterprise, working here as the marketing manager. Today, we are all here for a very interesting discussion about impact of Python on data science and e-commerce. I'm sure all of you must be excited and are eagerly waiting to hear from our speaker. Before we start the Tech Meetup today, I would like to give you a quick brief about Eastern Enterprise. Eastern Enterprise is an IT services company specialized in crafting software solutions for startups, small and medium enterprises. With an agile ready dynamic workforce of 350 plus technology artists creating value in all directions, Eastern Enterprise helps 100 plus clients across Europe in creating software solutions that are robust, creative, modern, and user centric. Working with Eastern Enterprise, change becomes the most dynamic, powerful source of progress. And the heart and soul of Eastern Enterprise is its people. So that's a quick intro about our organization in a nutshell. You can visit www.easternenterprise.com to know more about us. Now, I would like to quickly introduce you to our esteemed speaker for today and run you through the agenda of this meetup. Our speaker for today is Prakash Singh. Prakash Singh works at Eastern Enterprise as a professional Python tech lead. He's been here with us for 7+ years and helps us create web applications using Python, Django, creating AI chatbots and machine learning models. Prakash has core competencies in conversational systems, informational retrieval, recommendation system, and prediction systems. Before I hand over the stage to our speaker today, a few quick housekeeping rules for all of you present here today. In case anyone faces any issues, please feel free to post it in the chat and our team will reach out to you to fix the same. In case of any queries, please don't hesitate to put the same in the comment section and our speakers will try to answer the same during the Q&A session that we'll have towards the end of this meetup. At the end of the meetup, request you all to provide your valuable feedback as it would really help us to give you a better experience in our future tech meetups. You will find the feedback form link, which will be shared shortly in the chat. So now I would like to welcome you all and hand over the stage to Prakash. Prakash, the stage is all yours. We are all waiting eagerly to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sohail. Hey, hi all. My name is Prakash and I'm having more than 7 years of experience in Python field. And since last 2 years, I have been working with Eastern Enterprise as a technical lead. Over the periods, I have worked on different projects like project based on code Python, project based on e-commerce, and project based on data science and creating AI chatbots. And in today's discussion, I will be covering two topics. The first one is Python with e-commerce, and the second one is Python with machine learning and data science. So inside our first topic, which is Python with e-commerce, I will be covering Django framework. Inside Django, I will be covering more advanced topics like scalability and security inside Django. And then we will also talk about MVT framework, the architecture of Django, and then we will integrate DRF over on top of Django, and then we will create our first REST API. In our second topic, I will guide you through how we can create a simple Rasa chatbot, and then we will integrate Django framework or Django API inside it. So let's just start quickly with our first topic, which is Django framework. So as we know, like Python has multiple frameworks available, which we can say Flask, Django, Turbo 2 Gears, Web2Py, and Cherry 2Py. And out of these, Django is the most robust, more secure, and you can say the scale-up framework which is available right now. So why Django? So there are like multiple reasons behind it. The main reasons is it clearly follows a pattern-based framework, which is called MVT, which is very robust. I will show you how MVT works in my next slide. But after that, what we can say, all the applications that we develop using Django, they are very fast, they are very secure, and they are very scalable enough. Django also follows loosely coupled design pattern. That means each and every layer of Django has, they are not tightly coupled, they are not very much attached to each other. Let's say if I change something in urls.py file, I do not need to change everything about the view that is associated with that URL. So that's why Django is loosely coupled. And apart from this, Django has multiple other advantages, like it has third-party packages which we can easily install, which we can easily use. It has LTS support. It comes with LTS support. That means if today I am creating one web application using Django, and if Django version is expires, Django automatically comes with LTS support. So right now it's 3.2, later on it will be 4.2. So we can easily upgrade through simple commands. And it has multiple support of ML libraries. There are like so many libraries which we can use over Django to manipulate the data which is coming through our e-commerce platform. So let's discuss about the architecture of Django. This MVT. Here, M denotes for model, which is our logical data structure. It represents our database. And it is directly connected with our view layer, which is our business logical layer. So whatever we want to write, whatever we want to implement from business perspective, we have to write that code inside view. Through the help of model, we manipulate the data, and then if we want to show that data in through a browser, through a document, that we can do through our template layer. So here, template layer is our presentation layer. So this sums up our MVT architecture. And now let's come to the scalability part of Django. Why Django is scalable? What is scalability? So if I ask you a simple question, being an end user, how you will evaluate the performance of an e-commerce application? Okay, the answer would be I will go through that application and I will browse through the products. I will see if the response is coming in no time or if response is taking much time or not. So let me just take you through a simple example here. So if I open Amazon.com, you can see that there are like so many products listed here. Like there are like lakhs of products which are listed in this website. And when I browse through any of the product, let's say keyboards, and there are like multiple keyboards which is coming from either from database or either from cache, but that is very quick. So based on this experience, user experience, I can say that this website has a good scalability. So scalability has three different categorization. One is from the architecture level, the second one is from the database section, and the third one is from the code base section. So let's say Amazon.com is deployed on AWS. That is its architecture. We are getting all the requests from that layer first, and after that, that request follows and come to the database through code. Okay, so there are three sections out of it. So this particular keyboard can reside either on database or in cache. So that's why it is very fast. So coming back to the topic, scalability can be defined through architecture level scaling, database level scaling, and code level scaling. So architecture level scaling is horizontal scaling. There are like multiple scalings, horizontal and vertical, but horizontal scaling has more advantage over vertical scaling. And in Django, scaling horizontally requires us to make our app stateless and keep the state outside. So what does it mean? That means that we can achieve this in Django by introducing cache backend. Cache backend, either it can be Memcache or Redis, to store the information in different servers and achieve the statelessness. And again, later comes to database level scaling. In database level scaling, what we can achieve, by default, Django comes with SQLite 3 database, which is very good if we are just starting up our e-commerce platform, right? But when the user count is huge, when our e-commerce website is getting more and more traffic. In that case, what we need to do, we need to replace that database from either from Postgres or from MySQL. Postgres, in different hand, has the best compatibility with Django. It has the more indexing feature. If we introduce indexing as well, it will boost up our select related queries. So through database level scaling also, we can do all these things. And let's come to code level scaling. So inside Django, there are different layers which are associated with coding. So the first layer is the middleware layer. Every request which is coming in our system would fetch middlewares first, and then it would fetch URLs, and then the corresponding view. And once the data is manipulated, then it will again fetches the middleware layer and gives the HTTP response. So what does it mean? It means every middleware needs to fetch twice for a single request, which actually sometimes increases the response time. So in order to manage our middlewares inside Django, what we can do, we can write our custom middlewares. We can delete some of the middlewares which has no use according to our business. Okay, so which will actually reduce the request response time. That is first thing. The second thing is from the coding perspective, what we can do, we can use some queries which actually reduces the time to get the data from the database. So let's say select related and prefetch related. These two queries are very much optimized than a filter query because it holds the data in the cache, and every time when you do select related query, it will not again hit the database. It will save all those items in the cache and it will give you that response from there itself. And select related also uses SQL joins. So that means any foreign key relationship, if we have, like in this example, if I show you this example here, this is my table, product table, and inside it, I have like multiple columns. There is one more column called brand, which has a foreign key relationship. But if I select this from, like, if I want to get a product like this, in a simple way, product.objects.select related using brand. So what it will do, it will create a join, SQL join with that foreign key table with brand table and store all the results in the cache. So the manipulation after this query set, if you want to make that manipulation, what that will optimize again hit the database. Apart from select related and prefetch related, we also have values, dot values. So let's say if I use dot values, so values always give the response in a list, outcome list. The query set outcome would be a list, and it restrict the data. So let's say if I just want only ID and name from that product table, right? So right now it's ID, name, description, and SQ. But what if I only need ID and name? So it restricts the data. Okay, so same way, we can say that in our Amazon.com, what we take an example, the list of keyboards. So let's suppose there are 20,000 keyboards available in the database, but out of 20,000, only 10,000 keyboards are available. They are not out of stock. But what if we write a code which actually gets all the keyboard from the database directly, all the 20,000 keyboards? It will unnecessarily takes much time to actually evaluate that query. So instead of that, from the coding perspective, what we can do, we can just get the data, get the keyboards which are available, which are not out of stock. So this is the scalability from the coding perspective, what we can do. Now comes to the main topic, which is serverless with scalability. So what is a serverless technology? What is a serverless part? There are servers, we know that, where we have to deploy our code and server is getting the request and we are and server giving the response. Everything is happening on server. But what is serverless? Serverless means there is no server 24/7. That means a server will be activated when there is an event attached to it will trigger, or it will be triggered. Then only that server will create, and then it will fulfill that request and give the response, and then again it will shut down. So that means we only need to pay when the server is running. We do not need to pay every time when the server is on the go. Okay. So this can be achieved using Lambda function using AWS Lambda. So let's discuss what is AWS Lambda and how it works. So AWS Lambda is giving us a complete platform where we can deploy our code and set some triggers. So let's say the trigger can be through HTTP endpoints. It can be a webhook. It can be an API, which eventually gets triggered by an HTTP request. And once that API request triggers, then the uploaded code on AWS would be running, and it will fulfill the request, and again then it will shut down. So that means we only pay for commute time. We do not pay for its idle time. So that is AWS Lambda for us. And there can be like multiple way we can trigger a Lambda function through API gateway, through AWS services. There are like multiple AWS services available. We have S3, we have DynamoDB, we have load CodeFront, we have API gateway and everything. Okay. So apart from these things, let's take an example. We trigger an Lambda function with an event of upload on S3 bucket. So if I take a product photograph, the product is an iPhone 13. If I take that photograph, iPhone 13 photograph, and upload it on S3 bucket, that S3 bucket has a trigger to the Lambda function that we have written. So it will trigger that Lambda function. And inside that, what we have written, the code inside that Lambda function is to generate the optimized version for that image for web, mobile, and tablet sizes. So it will do on a single go. On uploading anything on S3 bucket, on desired S3 bucket, it will run the code directly and it will optimize that image every time. Okay, so that was all the scalability part we have covered. Now we will cover security part inside Django. So Django by default serves most of the security by default. So if we talk about template layer, then in template layer, we have cross-site scripting and cross-site request forgery protection by default activated. And the other one is SQL injection protection. So what is an SQL injection? It leads us to data it leads us to data leakage, as well as it leads us to modify the unnecessary data or modify the data which we have inside our database. So how we can restrict SQL injection in Django? So let's take a simple example. Django actually provides query parameterization. What does it mean? It means it will allow us to pass the parameter inside a query like this. So let's say I have a product. Okay, I have a product table which will give me all the product details. Now I replace simple query from a raw query set and implement a parameter which is a product ID 1. And when I implement this code, it will give me just one ID which I have mentioned. I can manipulate this, but through SQL injection side, it is quite obvious that it cannot be modified by the third party or by the attacker. So Django provides it by default. And now let's talk about our first main topic related to Django REST framework. So what is a Django REST framework and why we use it? So every time we want to communicate from front end and back end side or from one application to another application, we need an API. We need something we need some common data which needs to communicate between two different applications. So here in Django, we can create REST APIs using Django REST framework. Django REST frameworks, if you can see in my right hand side, there is an architecture of Django REST framework which has 4 main layers. The first layer is URL pattern, which is our routers that we have to define for our application. All the routes we have to register it here. So let's say I have a products route which has a direct connection with my product view. So this view I will write inside my views.py file, which is my business logical layer. So this layer, if I go from here, you can directly see I have a product view return inside my views.py file, and it manipulates data. Either it is a simple query or a query set, or it can be a combination of multiple query sets. In both the ways, we have to communicate with the models.py file, which is our model, through view. So view is getting the data, desired data from this model, and fulfill the request. But there is one more additional to it, which is called serializer. Why we have serializer here? Serializer serialize the data in a desired format. Either it can be JSON or XML. So serialize validates the data and send it in a desired format, which is right now in our case, it is JSON. So we have to bind serializer as well as with our view. So what we have to do is every time whenever we write a serializer, we have to use either serializer.serializer method, which is a custom method to write all the validations again, or we can directly use serializers.model serializer. It will validates the data as per the model's validation. If this is a char field, if and this is a many-to-many field, or this is a float field, we have to provide this data. This is a validation that we have implemented in our model layer. So serializer will check that validation directly from serializer.model serializer, and it will apply to those fields that we have to mention inside class meta. So once we do that, serializer will give us all the results, all these fields that I want. Okay, so here is the overall structure, and if I run this code, so let me just uncomment it because it was just a SQL injection example. Let me just uncomment this one, and I will show you. This serializer will validate the data and give me the result like this. ID and name. Right now I have mentioned these two things here. And if I want to replace it with select related, then I have to mention the foreign key name here, which is brand. So if I say it, so it will give me all the results like ID, name, description, and SQ. And let's just check what is happening. We have name, description, SQ. If I want to add brand as well, brand is a foreign key relationship. So that means we have to create nested serializer inside serializer. So how we can add foreign key relationship inside one single serializer just by adding that serializer details here. And I need to add in the field set as well. So if I do that and again hit the request, we will see there is some more information which is coming. The information is related to foreign key relationship lookup. So this is the nested serializer for us, and there is some restrictions while working on nested serializers. The common restrictions are we cannot create directly. So I will take you an example like this, Nokia. Let me create this. Okay, if I try to save it, then it will give me an error. The error is while working on nested serializer or the serializers where we have a foreign key relationship, we have to override, create, and update methods for them. Django doesn't automatically handles nested serializer lookups. So we have to modify, we have to actually override the default create and update method of the Django serializers to manipulate our data or to create and update our data. So this is a simple example how we can create a REST API and how we can work with nested serializers. So now let's back to the next topic, which is more of towards the machine learning path and AI part. So here I will guide you through to create a simple chatbot using Rasa framework. So first of all, what is the Rasa framework? Rasa framework is an open source framework which is based on Python. So that's why Python has more advantages over Rasa. We have a custom actions where we can write custom actions and where you can use or where we can implement our REST APIs and manipulates the data, manipulates the outcome which is coming from our chatbot. So Rasa chatbot has two main features. The first one is Rasa NLU and the second one is Rasa Core. Rasa NLU, it means natural language understanding. So it actually, let's say if I am typing with the chatbot, reserve a table at Cliff House tonight. Okay, so in this example, it will fetch the intent. Rasa NLU fetches the intent and entities from that text or from that sentence. Again, if I talk with respect to with respect to our product table, inside our product table there can be multiple products. Like let's say the intent would be show me all the products. So here it will fetches the intent and entities from that sentence and pass it to the Rasa core. And Rasa core has direct connection with DB and APIs. So let me just walk you through with the live example of chatbot. So inside this, we have this custom actions where we can manipulate our data, where I can manipulate or integrate my REST API. So this is the REST API endpoint that I have created in Django. So it gives me all the product. And the same for that, I have created a story. The story is inquire items. And the action I have to register inside this stories.yml file, and the story name is action ecom items. And in NLU.yml file, what we need to do is we need to provide training data for the bot to actually train for. So I have like return multiple variations of what a user can think of. So let's say some user can say, show me all the items. Items can be replaced by products and something else. So we have to write all those variations so that our Rasa core model will train in a much better way. And then again, when it trains it, it gives us an appropriate response, and the confidence level should be more than 90% in that case if the intent matches with the examples that we have written. So to test this one, we have two methods to do it. Either we can directly do it from Postman, or we can directly do through the front end application where we can integrate this webhook. This webhook is common for all the Rasa part. Either it is Rasa core or either it is the action server that is running parallelly. So let's say the products. My intent was products here, product please. So it will take that product please as products and will give me the results here. Here are the list of products. So I have two products as we can see here. I have two product mentions, Samsung S11 and Apple. So I can like create multiple products here inside Django, and that will reflect in the Postman itself. So this is how Rasa chatbot works, and this is how we can actually integrate our REST API inside Rasa. And there is one more thing related to this. Rasa model can be trained through TensorFlow by default, but we can actually modify it or we can actually override it by using Spacie and any other different models that we want to train. So this we have already done integration with Django. We have initiated it through Postman and through Django. We have already tested our APIs, how APIs are working. And chatbot testing, we have done it through Postman. So yeah, this integration with Django part is also done from our side. And lately, this two things, after covering these two things, there are like multiple chances whether we can directly work on some e-commerce application using Django if we know Python very well, or there are chances inside e-commerce there are some integration of data science libraries We can also do that, or we can directly experience or explore a complete data science field. So yeah, this is all about today's talk, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prakash. That was very interesting. I'm sure everyone loved that, but I feel amazed when when I hear people talk about technology every single time. The kind of changes it's bringing to this world, every single thing that we do around in our day-to-day lives. It's very interesting to hear from an aspect of Python how it's changing everyone and everyday's life for everyone around there. We'll quickly move to the Q&A section, Prakash, and try to answer some of the queries our audience has. I'll quickly bring up some of them to you. The first question that I see here says, how can we efficiently use Django's ORM to improve the scalability?
Oh, yeah. So that's an interesting question, Sohail. So Django by default has an ORM layer, which is an object relational mapper layer which works between our Django view. So by using that functionality and by using some of the custom query set like select related, prefetch related, or dot values and dot only, these are some of the query parameters that we have to use inside it, and that we can optimize our code and we can reduce the query set times as well.
Interesting, interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll just put forward the second question that we have here. It says, is SQL injection possible in Django?
Yes, SQL injections are possible in Django, but there are some every like there are some things which we can always take precautions of. Django has the all the functionality, but most of the developers are not aware of that. Okay, we need to use that, or do we have that functionality inside Django? So as I mentioned earlier, query parameterization is something which we can directly use to avoid SQL injection. Otherwise, if we use some direct raw queries, then SQL injection is possible inside Django. But if we use SQL parameterization, query parameterization, in that case, it is not possible to inject or to manipulate the data or data leakage thing inside Django.
Right, right. That makes sense. There's another question around serverless app. So, is it possible to deploy the same thing in serverless apps as well, Prakash?
Yes, there is a tool called Zappa. There is a package, whole package, which is called Zappa. Through Zappa, we can deploy all the serverless code using that tool. So there is only simple three commands which we have to take care of. First, we have to install Zappa, and after that, we have to initialize that Zappa package, and then Zappa run and Zappa deploy. Zappa deploy will automatically deploys our code on AWS Lambda, because we already make some configuration of AWS inside our Python code before installing Zappa. So once we do that Zappa deploy command, it will automatically deploy. It bundles up all the code in one single package, and it will deploy that code on AWS Lambda. So that we can do.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yes.
There's another question around Rasa which you had covered somewhere in your presentation. It says, is it possible to use custom classifiers in Rasa?
Yes, we can use it. We can use it like multiple classifiers because there are like Rasa by default uses its own default custom default classifier, but we can use third party classifier and integrate it inside Rasa and use it.
Got it. Got it. There's another question, Prakash, which says, why should we choose Python over Node.js?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. Like Python, as I said in the starting, Python follows MVT pattern. It has built-in libraries, built-in authentication system, built-in you can say middlewares as well. So all those tools and all those functionality, whether you want to go stateless, you want to scale our application if the loads is if the request load is improving or increasing, in that case Django does it by automatically. It has all the built-in things which is very much reliable for creating a enterprise level e-commerce application.
Wonderful. Prakash, there's also another question about Django itself. So the question says, is it possible to use multiple databases in Django? And there's a follow-up question to that as well, which says, is it possible to use a combination of different types of databases as well?
Yes, that we can use. So let's say by default, Django comes with DB SQLite 3, right? We can use DB SQLite 3 for testing purpose and for other database in our main action server, action part. And if we want two databases to handle, like let's say I want to use MySQL and Postgres both at the same time, we cannot use that. But yeah, we have to make some configuration. So let's say in our database, in my settings.py file, there is a database dictionary. Inside that dictionary, I can mention two, three, four, multiple databases, but default database should be one. It cannot be two. So all the primary actions that needs to be performed, it should be performed on primary default database, not on secondary database. But if we want to implement those actions in secondary database, we have to explicitly mention that through commands. So yeah, the overall answer is yes, we can use multiple database inside Django by just manipulating our database dictionary.
Wonderful, Prakash. I think that brings us to the end of the Q&A session as well. It was really interesting to hear everything about Python to do with e-commerce and data science here, Prakash. Thank you for your valuable time. So we are now moving towards the end of this meetup, and I would request our audience to please share your valuable feedback through the link that is shared on the chat. I would like to thank everyone in the audience for attending this event. Prakash, thanks so much for sharing all your knowledge with the audience out here, and of course the whole team behind this meetup for helping us continuously make this event successful. Before we just log off from this LinkedIn Live, I would like to ask all our viewers to follow us, subscribe us on YouTube for more such valuable tech meetups coming your way, and a lot of more thought leadership coming your way as well that we keep producing every single time. But yes, if there are any other queries, please feel free to put them on the chat, and we'll come back to you one to one as well. Thank you, Prakash, once again. And it was wonderful to have you here with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was pleasure, Sohail. It was pleasure. I can see one more comment, Sohail here.
Okay, yes, I see one last comment which says, how do we increase Django security? Do
Django.
you want to quickly answer that before we close this?
Yes, I have like covered this in the talk as well. But yeah, what we can do in Django, there are two types of security. Either if we go for normal Django page, or we can have security on REST APIs. So I will cover REST API part here. So Django by default, Django REST framework by default provides security layers. Okay, there are like multiple default layers which we provide, but if you want to increase more security like token authentication and something, that what we can do, we can implement that token JWT token authentication inside a dictionary here. Let me just, if I am able to share my screen or not, I don't know, but yeah, let me just share it very quickly. So in my base.py file, there are middlewares, right? So inside middleware, what I can do, there is already a security middleware, token middleware. I can also use JWT token authentication or OAuth2 authentication, which is the best authentication system present in today's coding world. So that we can do.
So Prakash, your screen is shared right now. Do you want to share something that you were planning to?
Yeah. So yeah, as I mentioned, I can explicitly define additional security inside my middleware by just adding JWT token authentication or OAuth2 authentication. I can quickly add it here, and then I will add it on top of my view. So let's say this view, I don't want this view to be accessed by unauthorized person. So this authentication class and permission class has it all. It will fetches the security part from directly from the settings.py file. That means if I have implemented JWT token, so JWT token needs to be there for every user, that only then we authenticate that user. So we can increase the security by implementing JWT token or OAuth2 token. So these are some of the like very well-known token system and authentication system available inside coding world, and these we can easily integrate our Django.
Okay. Prakash, I think people really love this topic. There's another one coming your way. There's another question. I hope you don't mind answering them before we leave. So this one is about search engine, which is very important in e-commerce industry. I mean, everyone keeps looking into it very eagerly. So can you please share some experience to build efficient search with Python itself?
Look, yeah, search functionality. We mean to say if we search for any topic, those are the lookup fields. Okay, by mentioning lookup fields, we are saying that okay, these lookup fields needs to be handled separately, and these fields needs to be accessed from the database in a very separate or in a very efficient manner. And apart from lookup field, what we can do, we can also use search filters, custom search filters. Okay, so in Django we have multiple default or built-in library, built-in packages or filter packages which we can directly use and write down our custom search filter, and then we use it. Through that, it's completely up to us that what we need to show, how we need to show. That's completely up to a developer, and it will be very efficient to search any of the products in e-commerce.
Right. That makes sense. There's another one coming your way, Prakash, which says, can we connect Rasa with social media messengers for creating orders via chat box, like Facebook or Twitter messaging system? Is it possible?
Yes, we can do that. We can easily do that. Facebook has either Facebook, Twitter, or if you want to connect it with Slack, you want to connect it with any of the third party messaging tools, we can do that. There are tools, and there are built-in lines of code which already present in Rasa. We just need to uncomment that, and we need to follow up with Facebook and integrate our webhook inside that, and then we can connect.
Wonderful, Prakash. Thank you so much. I think that brings us to the end of our Q&A session finally. And yes, reminding me about Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are all there on those social channels. Please follow us, like us, subscribe us on all those channels. And there's a lot more to come from our way. Thank you all for joining us today. Prakash, thanks again. And it was really interesting to hear from you about Python. We look forward to many more Technique tips with you and with our audience out there. Thank you.